Full transparency at the start of the video, this isn't sponsored content, but Addiesdive did ask me if I would be willing to review one of their models for the AliExpress anniversary sale happening the day this video goes live on the 11th of November. They're a brand I've worked with before and bought with my own money before, and outside of asking that the video was released today, that was it from them. No payment and no editorial control on their part, so my thoughts are entirely my own, as indeed was the choice of watch that I wanted to feature on the channel. The watch in question is the AD2511, a turtle-style diver, which I picked out for three main reasons. Number one, I want to experience styles I've never tried before, and a turtle ticks that box. Two, I want to see how good the textured dial is, and finally, I want to be a bit broader on the channel and see if there are larger watches that I feel I can pull off. With all that said, let's get into the video. Let's start with my generous nomenclature of turtle style and call a spade a spade. It's a homage piece, drawing heavy inspiration from the Seiko Prospex turtle range. It has that cushion case design, dive bezel, and chunky indices among other similarities. I happen to think this is a fairly attractive timepiece, but as ever with a homage, you can't give Addiesdive a huge amount of credit in that department. It isn't a replica though, there are some differences, some of which I would actually call preferable compared to a real turtle. The most noticeable of these is the handset. Don't get me wrong here, the big chunky hands on the turtle are designed to pack in a lot of lume and be easily distinguishable in low light conditions. It's a dive watch and it's designed for that use case scenario. Makes perfect sense, but aesthetically, I don't really rate it. There are other brands out there with what I would call better solutions. The snowflake hands on a Tudor spring to mind. Now the AD2511 has very generic hands. Outside of the traffic light lume pip on the second hand, they are basic battens. But I do think I prefer the way they look to the Seiko. Another noticeable difference is the crown. Like the Seiko, it's slanted and positioned at 4 o'clock. The philosophy behind this is to stop the crown digging into the wrist, providing easier access and lessening the chance of damage to the movement by a direct impact onto the stem, and it gives the timepiece a recognisable asymmetry. Now, to be clear, I prefer a crown at 3, but if all of these things add up to a more functional dive watch, then it makes perfect sense to me. The difference isn't the crown positioning though, but the notched crown guard on the Addiesdive. Now, as I stated at the beginning, I'm looking to experience a new style with this piece, so I do not profess to be an expert on the turtle. Looking through quite an extensive back catalogue of turtle models though, I couldn't find any that have this adaptation. It's something you can find in the Seiko 5 Sports range, but even then, not recessed into the case quite to this extent. The case itself is 43.8mm in diameter, with a lug-to-lug of 46.8mm and a thickness of 12mm. That brings it in smaller all round compared to a standard turtle by roughly a millimetre in every dimension. If you've seen my videos before, you'll know that not only do I have a slightly smaller than average size wrist, but also just a general preference for smaller watches. The last thing I want is a watch that looks like it's wearing me rather than the other way round. And this is definitely more viable for me than an actual turtle, and I think the relatively small lug-to-lug makes it fit my wrist better. But the jury's out on whether or not I'm actually pulling this off or not. Depending on the spec you go for, a turtle weighs in somewhere between 160 and 180 grams on a bracelet. This is at the top end of that at 180 grams, and that is something you are going to feel wearing throughout the day. So heavy, but the use case is a diver, and the buoyant force of water does mean that you'd feel it less wearing it for its intended purpose. But as a desk diver, I personally would have to think about swapping to a black rubber strap for more comfort. The bracelet is fine. A little more taper and a little less rattle would have been nice, but a fold-over deployant clasp is a really nice touch. It's a solid offering for what you'd expect from the price point, but definitely not a highlight of the watch. In terms of those dive credentials, like the Turtle, it's rated to 200 meters of water resistance and has a screw-down crown and case back to facilitate this. Unlike the Turtle, you're not going to get a model with a PADI logo on it, and you're also not getting an automatic movement. Instead, this is powered by a Miyota 2115 caliber, which is actually more accurate, so you can debate on whether or not that's a pro or con in reality. The other really noticeable difference is, of course, the price. Now that for me is difficult to be accurate with, as I'm obviously making this video in advance. And I'm told that this anniversary sale will be the cheapest price the AD2511 has ever been available for. At the time of writing, it's just shy of $65, but there are some caveats to that. I live in the UK, so exchange rates vary, and I don't know what codes and discounts will be available when this goes live. The cheapest price I could find for a new Seiko Prospex Turtle was just below $400. I guess the question therefore becomes, is this a watch worth considering as an affordable alternative? That's always going to be a matter of personal perspective. If you actually own a Turtle, then of course not. But if you wanted a trial run before a more expensive upgrade, or simply like the look of this piece, I definitely think it's worth a consideration. In terms of use case scenario, this watch is built like a tank, so I think it could easily fulfill beta status. It's available in 4 colours, so it could be used to match a mood or fashion choice, and if you're a fan of a Turtle style watch but you're working on a budget, it certainly ticks that box. Now, don't get me wrong, I think there will be plenty of people who immediately dismiss any kind of homage, and that's your prerogative, but as a value for money proposition, I think this offers a lot for the asking price. That price context is important. If you've got luxury watches in your collection already, no, this isn't going to compete, and nor should you expect it to. However, if you just look at the specifications, Huron-6L stainless steel, BGW9 Superluminova, sapphire crystal with AR undercoating, 200 meters of water resistance, a date complication, and a 120 click unidirectional bezel, that's really hard for any brand to compete with at this price point. It also has a feature that you'd normally pay a premium for, especially at this price point, a textured dial. Now, I'll be clear, it isn't going to compete with something from the Cocktail Time range, a Grand Seiko or the Citizen Silver lacquer dials. You wouldn't expect it to, considering its cost. However, the combination of grooves into the metal of the dial plus the fading from colour to black gradient really gives it a little something. I would go so far as saying, I don't think I've seen a better textured dial for less. The only thing that springs to mind for me is another Addiesdive model that I tried out last year with a sandy texture to it, but I'd say this is levels above that. To wrap things up, I just want to reflect a little on my initial reasons for wanting to give this watch a try. I like the turtle design a lot more than I thought I would. The lug-to-lug is small enough that the larger size doesn't feel as unwieldy for me as I thought it would, and the textured dial is also far better than I was expecting. So pretty positive from my perspective, but I'd love to get your thoughts on this piece in the comments section down below. Let's discuss. I would just like to take a moment before we finish to thank you all for your support on the channel. I'm sure you can all appreciate that watch collecting is not an inexpensive hobby, and buying watches for the purposes of review is not something I can always afford to do. So you helping grow the channel to the point where brands are contacting me and asking to loan me pieces without asking for editorial control really means a lot to me, because it means I can do more of what I love to do. As ever, thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed what you've seen or found it informative, consider dropping the video a like and subscribing for more content like this in future.